Okay, so we'll get going. I'll just ask one more question of you. Just for a bit of background information. Just a couple of people haven't answered yet. They may be away from their screen. Give them a few seconds. Okay, we'll get going. Thanks very much for that. So good afternoon everyone. My name is Bill Murch. I'm one of the application engineers at Intercad and I'm based in the Sydney office. This webinar will introduce you to design automation using DriveWorks Express. We have a lot to cover in a short time, so please keep any questions to the end unless it's affecting your actual hearing or viewing of the webinar. If I don't have time to answer them all at the end of the session, they'll be collated and sent to me and I'll respond via email after the webinar. Okay, so these are the topics we'll be looking at today. First, we'll discuss why you would need design automation. Then we'll look at exactly what DriveWorks Express is. Then we'll have a brief look at the DriveWorks product range so you know what is available and where DriveWorks Express fits in. I'll then do two demos of DriveWorks Express. One has been pre-prepared that will give you an idea of the concept of the software and how it works. And I'll do one from scratch so you get an idea of what is involved in actually creating a DriveWorks Express project. Then to help you get started, I'll show you where you can get tutorials and sample projects for DriveWorks Express so you can start learning how to use it straight away. And to finish, we'll have a look at the DriveWorks products and compare their functionality. So, why do you need design automation? Well, for a start, you'll make more sales because you can respond faster to any inquiries. You'll reduce your costs because custom designs can be created faster. Typically, custom designs can be created in minutes, not days. The quality of your drawings and products will improve because your work will be more consistent. You'll become more efficient, saving both time and money because your repetitive tasks will be reduced. And finally, you'll have more time to create new designs and invent new products because your designers and engineers will have more time to be creative. But how does DriveWorks Express help you to achieve all this? Well, DriveWorks Express is the first step in the design automation process. It's your it's your entry-level product to get you started. The good news is you already have it. It's included in every seat of SolidWorks since 2008, so there's no additional cost to you. Now, DriveWorks Express lets you capture your design parameters, then define your design rules, and create data entry forms. Then DriveWorks Express automates it. You enter the project data into the form, then DriveWorks Express automatically generates your parts, assemblies, and your drawings. So your work is done faster, it's repeatable, and it's consistent, saving you time and money. Now, DriveWorks Express does all this by using your design rules, but what exactly does this mean? Well, design rules are the core of the DriveWorks software. They are what gives it its brains and power. So here are some simple examples of design rules that can be incorporated into the DriveWorks software. We use a support if the length goes over 2 meters. If it's less than 2 meters, we don't need the support. Greater than 2 meters, we need the support. You can build a rule for that. You have a simple if statement where it checks the length that you've entered. Or we always have a 10mm gap around the door frame. Unless the frame is over 1.2 meters wide, then it's increased to 12mm. Again, a simple if statement could control that. Just check the width of the frame and then assign the gap. Or it could be non-technical along the lines of this. You might be able to choose where your customer comes from, and then your invoice is automatically produced in the appropriate currency. In Australia we have dollars, in the UK they have pounds. They're very, very simple rules, but that gives you an idea of what I mean. Okay, now when running DriveWorks, you enter data into the forms. DriveWorks Express evaluates this data against the rules you have defined, and it can control things such as dimension values, the file names, so you can control the name of your files based on perhaps the project or the customer you're dealing with. You can define custom properties and control custom properties. Control it when it was created, who did the work, what the customer name is, etc. And you can control feature and component visibility. Simple example here, you can control if you see the hole or not, if you see the block or not. And there's a lot more to it than that as well. You'll see this in the demos soon. Now, DriveWorks Express is one of 3 DriveWorks design automation products. It's the entry-level product, as I said, and you already have it because it's included in every seat of SolidWorks. The other 2 are DriveWorks Solo and DriveWorks Pro. The DriveWorks Solo has all the functionality of DriveWorks Express plus more. It's an additional product that is integrated fully into SolidWorks. DriveWorks Pro has all the functionality of DriveWorks Solo plus more. It's also fully integrated into SolidWorks, but it also has modules that are independent of SolidWorks. They're all based on the same technology, so you can easily upgrade from one to another as your requirements grow. Any project you create in one can be imported into the other ones. Okay, let's look at the actual product now. I'll switch over to SolidWorks and I'll take you through an existing DriveWorks Express project so you can see how it works, and then I'll create a simple one from scratch. Just waiting for everybody to be able to see this screen. There's a couple of slow connections, I think. Okay. You start DriveWorks Express within SolidWorks from the Tools menu, DriveWorks Express up here. It will now appear on the right-hand side within the task pane. For those of you who may have looked at DriveWorks Express in the past, it used to run in its own separate window in the middle of SolidWorks, but now it's fully integrated into the task pane. This is only from 2011 onwards. Now you can see there's an active database. All the information that you create in the DriveWorks Express project is stored in the Microsoft Access database. In this case, we're looking at some industrial stairs. You can see you can create a new database or change to a different one. I'll create one in a little while. You can add or edit models. It tells me this database contains 7 different models, and you can simply run the models if everything has already been set up for you. That's what we'll be doing. We'll just be running this project a couple of times to show you the concept of DriveWorks Express. So it's all driven by a step-by-step process, next to next, previous, etc. So I've chosen to run the models. I can come up here and just go next. And it shows me the 7 different models that are in this project. I'm going to run the industrial U-shaped stair. There seems to be a couple of people who aren't quite seeing my screen as I select items. Some slight delays there. Okay. If I click on next, and here is a form that's been created for data input. So the information we put in here will be used to control these industrial stairs. You can see different sorts of input. There's some fields with just numbers. There's some fields with up and down arrows or just down arrows. There's a couple of tick boxes. If you look at the first field, it defines the distance between floors. It's straightforward numeric entry. If I hover my cursor over it, it gives you a tooltip or a hint. That's what you have to do. Numeric entry with a value between 16 and 288. If I type something outside that, say 500, it goes pink as a visual clue, and a little warning symbol appears at the end telling me that I'm outside the parameters. If I try and type something other that's not numeric, so text, you can't see it of course, but I'm pressing letters on the keyboard and nothing appears in my field at all. So this is the first example of how DriveWorks Express can help you to limit incorrect data entry. For this example, we'll give it 200. Everything looks okay. Next field is the angle in degrees of the stairs. That tells me it's between 32 and 42. It's up to 0.1. Little spin arrows over here. And again, I'm controlling my data. I can go down only as low as 32 degrees and only as high as 42. Again, I'm controlling the data input, limiting the possibility of errors. We'll leave it at 42. Width of stairs, numeric entry again, between 36 and 108. We'll make it 100. The step nosing is a simple drop-down box. Once again, limiting the data you can select from. Give it the maximum value. Next two fields define the direction the stairs turn and what handrails are required, again with drop-down lists. So we'll go to the right and we'll have handrails on both sides. Handrail height, another text, numeric text box. Yep, we'll leave it at 37, that's okay. Two check boxes if you want guardrails, simple tick or untick, we'll have them both. And do we want dividers on the on the stairs? If so, are they horizontal or vertical? We'll leave it horizontal for now. Maximum centers between them, we'll make it 20, and a guardrail height of 100. So once everything's entered, I should just note there that if I have a value that's not valid, the create button down here is grayed out. I cannot create these stairs because data somewhere is invalid. So as long as everything's correct or within the range that's been predefined, I can create my stairs. So if I click on create now, you'll see what happens. The first thing it does is open up what we call a master model. You have to have made these stairs in the first place and then just drive variations of it. It then changes the appropriate dimensions and features to match the data we entered in the form. And it makes a whole new set of stairs based on those parameters. So here, that always passed pretty fast, so hopefully you got a chance to see that. I'll just rotate this around a little bit for you. You can see the stairs going up and to the right. Handrails on both sides, in fact wide enough to require a handrail in the middle, and a high guardrail all the way around. In the task pane on the right hand side, a process tree is displayed that shows each step that was performed and whether it was successful or not. I'll just widen the task pane. This is very handy for any troubleshooting you may have to carry out when you're first learning DriveWorks Express. Of course, you can see in this case everything's successful. There's green ticks everywhere. The file was opened successfully. The dimensions were controlled. A bit hard to see. It actually says it's set to the value that we put in. That's all controlled by rules. We'll see in a moment. As you scroll down, it talks about dimensions there. Then we come into features. In many cases, features were deleted based on the data we put in. Features can be deleted or suppressed or unsuppressed. And so on down the tree. Features and sub-features. And right at the end, it shows me that the file save was successful. If you look at the very top of the screen up here, you can see the name of the file that's been created, very long file name. I'll show you how it's done a bit later on, but that gives you an idea that you can control the name of the files created. In this case, it's industrial U-shaped stair, followed by a lot of the data that we put in. Alright, look, I'll run the project again just to show you how the variations work. And I should mention, this is actually a very sophisticated part file, but DriveWorks Express works equally well with assemblies. So I'll just close that one down, and we'll go next. We'll run it again. Another U-shaped stair. This one will put in some different data. So we'll make it show the distance between the stairs, the minimum angle this time, much narrower stairs. Nose step nosing, go into the left, handrail on the left, yeah, 3-4 height. We don't want guardrail on the right, we do want one on the left. We'll change it to vertical this time, we'll make it a lot smaller, and smaller again. So different values. If we create that, then we'll get much narrower stairs with only a single handrail going up to the left instead of the right. The process tree on the right hand side shows us that everything was correct. And there's our simplified stairs. One handrail, going up to the left, single width. So based on the one master model, we've created two completely different sets of stairs simply by entering data into the form. Now, just to show you that we can actually have multiple different sorts of models in one database, we'll just close that down and we'll run a different one. We'll run the caged ladder this time. The first thing you'll notice, it's a much simpler form. Obviously it doesn't need that much information to control it. So we'll put some guardrail height of 50, floor to floor height 200, and distance to the bottom of the cage will be 90. When I click create, the first thing you'll see is the master model that gets opened. So it's fairly short with three supports around the cage, or three sections, but the final product we create, because it's higher, requires a higher ladder and 4 guard sections around the cage itself. So one DriveWorks Express database can in fact contain multiple models if you want to run it that way. Of course, you can also have multiple databases that have different sets of models in them. Alright, we'll see how, you've seen how it's run. Let's see, have a look behind the scenes. That's not what I wanted to do, wrong button, sorry about that, that was not nice and quick. So if we go into industrial U-shaped stairs, now I want to edit the models this time. So it now starts to ask me questions about the contents rather than running the actual rules. So we'll look at the industrial U-shaped stair. So that's the master model that everything's based on. Notice there's no handrail shown. They get turned on as and when necessary. On the right-hand side, the task pane now shows us the information behind the scenes. It shows us the captured model. Again, it's just showing a single part here. If we had an assembly, then we'd have multiple components there. Assemblies, parts, sub-assemblies, etc. So it shows us down here we have captured models. We can also capture dimensions and features, custom properties. None of them have actually been captured in this case. And likewise, drawings and configurations can be controlled, although again, they haven't been in this case. So just having a quick look at dimensions and features. So we've captured many features, and also, I'll scroll down a bit, many dimensions. So they've all been captured from the model, and then they can be controlled or driven by the rules that we create. Okay, so everything's been done. If we go next, we have a look at the form. Now here's the form that we were filling in before. I'll just run a test mode to show it to you. So there's the form you saw before. And these are the fields that are in there. So for example, the floor to floor height is the first field that we entered information into. That was a numeric text box, and it's definitely required. If I just edit that to show it to you. So there's the name that was put in. You can define the type of data entry it is it required, and the minimum and maximum values. Here's where we put our control over the data we can enter. The stair angle in degrees was the spin button. Just edit that one. So there's a spin button selected with a minimum and maximum value and the incremental value as well. And so on. For example, the step nosing is a drop-down box. So we can edit that simple drop-down box has been selected. And here are the values that can go into that drop-down box. So this is how you control the data that can be selected and limit any data entry errors. Okay, so dimensions and features have been captured. The form has been created for data entry. We need to somehow connect them together so that the data we enter into the form controls the dimensions and features that have been captured. And that's done by what are called rules. And here we're in the rules section. I'll leave this nice and wide for now, it's easy to see. So we have a rule for the file name, we have rules for dimensions, rules for features, and it always tells you if there's anything missing. So if we look at the file name, for example, choose next. This is a summary of all the rules. To look at one rule in particular, we simply select it and we can build it. And this shows us the rule builder. I'll make it a bit bigger and increase the text size a little bit easier to read. So here you can see the rule has been made to be equal to the floor-to-floor height that was entered, and a dash, and then the stair angle in degrees, and then another dash, etc., etc. It looks quite complex and very confusing when you first see it, but I can assure you it's all quite logical once you start to use it. Now the default way the rule is created, the file name is created in DriveWorks Express is to append this rule to the original master file name. That's why we had that long name before, industrial U-shaped stair 200-42- etc., etc. So we can add simple information such as data entered into the form, or things like this using the left statement. So what this is saying here is take the handrail selected if it's left or right and extract the first character from the left. So you get an L or an R. As you can see down below in the result here, and that's why you get the R's and the L's in there as well as the numbers. Okay, so if we go the models, I'll just go back to where I was a minute ago. And we go back the wrong way, sorry about that. Okay, I'll have a look at the dimensions just to show them to you. To edit that, here's some dimension rules. So for example, the first floor height dimension, now that's a dimension that's been captured in SolidWorks and given a name of first floor height. That will be equivalent to the floor-to-floor height we entered divided by 2. Second floor height will be equivalent to the floor-to-floor height that we enter, and so on, as you can see down through each of those rows. Then you get to things like round up statements and round down statements. See them down here. And down there. And again you have things like if statements. So you have a whole variety of functions you can use to create the rules and drive what you want driven within your model. Once everything's set up in there, I should just show you a quick look at the features. Because in features you often get things like delete or suppress. So the idea is in dimensions you control the actual value of the dimension. In features you control its state. Is it suppressed, unsuppressed, deleted, all depending on the data entered into the form. Once all that has been set up and all the you're happy with all the rules, the next thing to do is simply to run the project as we've done so far. Next step would be to choose it and go into the run mode the same as we did before. I hope that made some sense. I know it can be a bit confusing when you first see this sort of thing. So what I'll do is I'll create a brand new DriveWorks Express database to show how it's done from scratch. I just want to emphasize that it's a very simplistic example purely due to the fact that we have limited time to cover everything. So I'll just close this. And what I can do is I'll open up a simple file, just a simple plate. Again, just from a time limitation, I can't go into a more detailed demo. Very simple plate. What we want to do with this is have the user control the length of the plate and the width of the plate. I want to automatically have the thickness of the plate set to be 1/10 of the width. And I want the rounded corners or the fillets to be optional. So I can choose a sharp-edged plate or a rounded corner plate. Okay, so remember I said you have to have created the model first before you can drive variations of it. So before, when we were running the model, that was because you already had the database existing. This time I shall create a new database. Okay, so we'll go next. It asks me to create a database. It's a Microsoft Access file, as you see here. So I'll create one called Plate Demo. Open that. So it tells us we're in that file now called Plate Demo. It tells us also that it has no models down here, so it defaults to the Add Models database option. So I'll choose Next. I can browse for a model if I haven't already opened it, or I can use the current model that I've already opened. That's what I've done, that's already selected, so that's pretty easy. Select Next. So here we have the task pane again, as you saw before. There's a features and dimension section, custom properties, drawing and configuration, and each one will tell me initially that nothing's been captured, which is fair enough, we've only just started. So if I leave it in dimensions and features section for now, I go and I can simply double click a feature to show its dimensions. I can do this in the graphics area or in the feature tree. If I double click Extrude 1, it shows me its dimensions. To capture it, capture a dimension, I simply point to it and click on it. It captures it over here on the right hand side in the task pane and shows me the SOLIDWORKS name for that dimension. Now that's fairly cryptic in many cases, so I can give it a more meaningful name down here, what we call a DriveWorks name. I'll just call this the length. Once I've done that, I simply click on Add. That's now a captured dimension called length. If I click on the 100 dimension, then it's captured, and you can see it actually already has a name assigned to it. That's because when I created the model, I had assigned a name width to that dimension, and therefore DriveWorks Express suggests that we use that as the default name. Makes it nice and easy. I can just click Add. That dimension is now captured as well, which means I'll later on be able to drive it. Likewise, I want to drive the 10 dimension here. It's already called thickness, so I can add that one. I can double click on the fillet and get its dimension and grab hold of that and give that a name, fillet radius. I'll add that. So that's all the dimensions captured that I need. I also, however, want to control those rounded corners or those fillets. So I simply select the fillet feature. The software recognises that I've selected a fillet as opposed to, a feature as opposed to a dimension. And over here it tells me it's fillet 1, and I can give it a more meaningful name again, in which case I could call it rounded corner, or whatever makes sense to you really. And I add that. So now I have up here 4 dimensions captured and 1 feature captured, and I can control them later on. Now I won't capture any custom properties at this stage, but I will capture a drawing to show you how that works. So I simply choose that option of drawing and configurations, and I browse to find my drawing. I have a simple plate drawing. So I choose that and open that, and that will now be driven as well. You'll see how that happens later on. I won't control any configurations at this stage. So that's everything captured that we need. The next step, move on up here to next, and we'll we'll define our form. Okay, it seems to have remembered something from the previous project, so we should just be able to just go back a step. Okay. Well, it throws up initially a field because the form must have at least one field, so we can simply enter in what we need. Project name. We decide we need to have a project to define each variation of the plate. It will be a simple text box. It's definitely required. Next. What everybody loves in a live demonstration. Okay. Okay, I'll hop into that. I'll just quickly close this down and start again. See if we can just get over that. Edit the models. Yes. That's better. Apologies for that. Not sure what happened there. But as you can see, it's pretty easy to get over it. Okay, so the name, we want a project name. It's a text box and it's required. There we go, that's better. So now what I'm getting is a field called project name. It's a text box, and it's definitely required to be entered or to have data filled in. We also need to control our plate length, so I'll add another field, and we'll call this plate length. This will be a numeric text box, and I want to control the size of my plate. So the minimum length is 100, the maximum length is 300. Go next. We now have 2 fields defined. I'll add another one. This will be my plate width. We'll control that with a spin button. the minimum value of, say, 50, maximum value of 150, increment in tens. So now we're giving a project name. We've controlled the length and the width. We also wanted to control, do we in fact need the round corners or not. So I'll add another one, and we'll call this. So you can see the name in the field that goes on the form can be quite descriptive, and this will be a simple checkbox, yes or no. If they tick it, yes, they want round corners. If it's not ticked, we want a square or sharp cornered plate. Okay. Now we can test that at any stage. So I'll just make it a bit smaller, so it looks more like it will be on the screen. Simply click on the test button, and that's how my form will look. It's project name, plate length. So if I type in 500, it won't like it. Type in 200, it likes it, and so on. Tick box. Okay. So we've captured the data, we've created the form for data input. We need to link them together now with the rules. So next we have our rules, and it shows us that there's one file name rule required and it's missing. There are 4 dimensions that need rules and 1 feature that needs rules. So we have to go through each of those and set them up. So I'll start with the file name. Click on the edit box over here and choose next. So it wants a name for the variation of the plate we're creating, so I'll click on that. And choose build. Now, whatever I put in here will be appended to the name of the master file, which is plate. So what I'm going to do is add the project name to each one. Now I can add data by simply typing in, or I can use these menus up here for predefined information. For example, inputs, that's all the input from the form. So I can choose any data from the form to go into the file name. Likewise, I can choose recent information that I put in if I want to reuse it over and over again. There's nothing here because it's a brand new project. I have mathematical symbols that I can use to create formulas. And likewise, I have logic symbols for creating formulas and controlling the logic of a rule. In this case, I simply want to have a dash. Now it's straight text, so I surround it in quotes. You can see it goes pink when it's an invalid rule. That's okay now. I could have a dash after my word plate, but I also want to add to that. So I use the ampersand to say I want to add some text to it, and I want to add the project name. So every time I create a new plate, it'll be plate-project name. The result down here is empty, merely because there's no project name to display yet. Okay, so I'll just show those rules again and expand this. And you can see there's the rule or formula there. Back. So there's no missing rules for the file name. I need to set up my dimensions rules, however. So I'll tick that box. And choose next. So the length dimension that we captured has to be driven somehow, and that's driven by the plate length that we enter into the form. So if I choose that and build that rule, so the length dimension is simply controlled by the plate length. Simple as that. I'll turn them all on so you can see them. So the length dimension is driven by the value we put in the form. Likewise for the width, I build the width. And that's equal to the plate width that we enter in the form. the thickness we know was supposed to be 1/10 of the width. So if we build that one, that will simply be the plate width, and I can type it in or choose from a list here, divided by 10. So a very simple equation, just to show you the concept of it. It's okay for that. So we have 3 of our 4 dimensions controlled with formulas. You don't have to have a formula, however. You can do it other ways. So for example, the fillet radius, I'm not going to control that. I just want to set that. So I can simply build that and let's just make it 20 and just give it a fixed number. So all our dimensions are now controlled in one way or another. So we go back. It shows us there are no missing rules for dimensions. So I can untick that one. I need to, however, control the feature. I've captured it, therefore it needs some sort of control. So I tick the box. Choose next. So what are we doing with this feature? We need to either suppress it or unsuppress it depending on the answer to our tick box. So if I select it and choose build, I can use an if statement. It's under my logic menu here. I can use an if statement. So we're saying, okay, if our do you want rounded corners data entry if it's false, so these are keywords that DriveWorks Express recognizes. If it's false, in other words, if it's not ticked, so we don't want rounded corners, then we would suppress the feature. If it is ticked, and therefore we want the rounded corners, we would unsuppress the feature. If it's already unsuppressed, it doesn't matter, it just stays unsuppressed. And this is based obviously on the fact that the filters are there to begin with. Okay. So there are no missing rules now. That means we have all the rules we need to control our captured dimensions. Just shrink down my task pane and go next, and that takes us straight into our form to run the actual project and create variations of our plate. So the project name, test number 1, plate length, fits in, I'll make it a bit wider. Do we want rounded corners? Yes, we do. So we should get a plate of those dimensions with a fillet in there. If I click on create, you'll see in a moment it drives the longer plate with rounded corners. The drawing appears, it adjusts the views on the drawing, and the processes in the task pane show us that everything was successful. Dimensions were driven, the feature was already suppressed, the drawing was created, and the files were saved. And here's the file name at the top of the screen here, plate-test1, based on the file name rule that I created a few moments ago. Okay, let's just close them down and run one from scratch. So run the model in our plate demo. So project name the old Acme Engineering. We'll make it a long plate, maximum length of 300. Minimum width 50, so it'll be a long skinny plate. And I don't want rounded corners, so I won't tick the box. So we should get a long skinny plate with sharp corners. Click on Create. The master file's opened, driven, controlled, the drawing is generated, the views are adjusted. Now the view is pretty quick. The view of the drawing is pretty quick there, so I'll just open that and show you that drawing. But you can see the plate has been generated quite differently to the original one. And on the left-hand side in the feature tree, you can see fillet 1 has been suppressed. If I just go and open up now Acme Engineering drawing. So there's a drawing generated automatically with dimensions. And if I had my custom properties captured, I could be driving them into the title block as well. So look, that's how you set up and run a DriveWorks Express project, albeit a very simple one. So look, I'll wrap up the webinar now with some information about getting tutorials and sample projects to learn, so you can learn how to use DriveWorks Express, and a quick comparison of it with DriveWorks Solo and DriveWorks Pro. So we'll just go back into the PowerPoint. Okay, an excellent way to get started with DriveWorks Express is to do the tutorial that is supplied with SolidWorks. It will give you a good grounding in the basics. You can find that shown there on the right hand side in the task pane. You click on Tutorials. Under Categories you choose Productivity Enhancements. You then choose DriveWorks Express from the list, and it will show you how to create variations of a gantry crane. The next step would be to download some sample projects from the DriveWorks Express website, and this will show you more ways that software can be used. So if you go to www.driveworksexpress.com, there's a big red arrow pointing down, download free DriveWorks Express content, and then you can choose what you want. And for example, there's industrial stairs we were just playing with. There's also a power pack, pressure vessel, and more as well. So a really good way to start. Okay, just to finish off, a review of the different DriveWorks products. We've been looking at DriveWorks Express, which is the entry-level product included in every set of SolidWorks. Next level up is a product called DriveWorks Solo. It has all the functionality of DriveWorks Express plus a lot more, such as the ability to preview your designs before committing to them. You have more control over model features, and more features can be controlled. You can create associated documentation such as quotes or covering letters. You have multiple customizable forms, not just that single form in Express, and a very powerful form designer to create them with. You can define variables and constants. You can even create tables for storing lists of data. And the rule builder is more powerful. You can create more complex rules. Now the flagship product is DriveWorks Pro. It has all the functionality of DriveWorks Solo, plus more, of course. It has different license modules, whether you're designing it or just using it. It has a web-based version, so people can actually enter data into the forms and see it live on the web. You can connect live to external data sources, such as SQL Server or Access databases. You can integrate it with SolidWorks Enterprise PDM. You can also integrate with other your company systems such as ERP or CAM, things like that. All the software is based on the same technology, so it's easy to upgrade from one to the next one up. If you'd like to see and learn more about DriveWorks Solo and Pro, we're holding a webinar on them called Advanced Design Automation using DriveWorks Solo and DriveWorks Pro on Thursday the 2nd of June, same time as today, 12 to 1. Details will be advertised in our e-newsletter, and there'll also be invitations sent out via email. If you've been attending this one, you'll get an invitation. Well, that completes the webinar. I hope you found it interesting and useful. Are there any questions? Happy to take as many questions as we can fit in the next couple of minutes. Just enter it on the question panel of your webinar window, and I'll see what I can do to answer them. Okay, first question, can you modify drawings to use your own title block? Absolutely, Daniel. It's a drawing that you create. You can have your own title block, whatever you want, multiple sheets, whatever you need. The only limitation is that there's only one drawing per model, but you can certainly have your own title block, and you can drive custom properties into there from your captured data. Next question, do the drawing views rescale to fit onto the page? Yes, Mitch, they will. If it doesn't have as much control over things like such as DriveWorks Solo and Pro, but yes, the default is to rescale the views to fit in. The only time I can see where that might not work is if you had a massive change of scale, and it just couldn't adjust to that. But I've never tried to that sort of level. Any others? Okay, the question is, can different weldment types and sizes be selected depending on certain criteria or dimensions? I've never done that in DriveWorks Express, Wojtek. Of different weldments in Solo, so I know Solo can do it. I have a suspicion that Express would struggle to control weldments because it's a multi-part body. But look, I'll double check on that one. All these questions I'll have a record of, and although I'm answering verbally now, I will send emails to all of you with answers to all these questions written down. Next question, if components are suppressed, will their drawing dimensions also be suppressed? Good question, Matthew. I'm trying to remember that one now. Yes, there's an option in there so that if the feature is suppressed, then the dimension will also be suppressed, yes. Can you pack and go a DriveWorks Express project to send to another site? Yes, DriveWorks Express, all the data is in a single Microsoft Access database file. So if you move your database file and your models, you move them to any other computer, they'll all work. A pack and go won't do it because the pack and go won't include the Access database. It would certainly include all the SolidWorks files, but not the database. Can DriveWorks Express be used if you use SolidWorks PDM workgroup? It can be used, but it has no knowledge of workgroup, I'm afraid, Hayden. You'd have to move up to the likes of Solo or Pro before they understand about workgroup. Another question, does this make design tables obsolete? Not necessarily, Richard. They go sort of hand in hand. There are some cases where design table might be easier, some cases where Express is easier. I actually have a document comparing the use of design tables to the use of DriveWorks Express, so I'll email it to everybody. Are the parts created independent of the original model once created? Yes, Jason. Once you create the part, it's as if you just did a save as copy. It's based on the original model, but it's they're completely separate. Can you specify an output folder using rules? Yes, that's possible, Matthew. You would need to have some sort of data in the form, perhaps, or something hard-coded in your general system knowledge, but you can certainly build that into the file name rule. Yes. Okay, there seems to be a pause in the questions. I'll just repeat. I'll answer that one in a moment. You can, so I will respond to all these questions in writing, so you have a record of them with any associated documentation. Another question. What happens when you accidentally move the database file to a different folder? The database file can be almost anywhere, as long as you don't move the files around, because it'll be looking for the files in a particular area. But you can simply move it back. It's asked by Trent. You can simply move it back to a different folder, Trent, and then it should still work from there. I probably need to have a more specific example, if you have one, of that case. So, yeah, okay, I'll answer that in the email. But Trent, if you need to have something specifically answered about that, just let me know. Okay, look, it's a few minutes after 1, so that's a good bunch of questions. As I said, I will answer them in writing. So, look, thank you very much for your attendance. I hope you found it useful. If you think of any other questions, please feel free to ask. Send it to our support email address. And if you use a subject, something like that, question from Design Automation webinar, that would be addressed to me because they know that I've run it, and I'll answer that. Okay. Yeah, thanks very much again, and have a good day.